Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the shop today. We will be working with a 6-hour P320. It's pretty basic disassembly, reassembly of the gun. I am going to be putting some aftermarket parts in it, but that's neither here nor there. They go in and come out the same way that the factory stuff does, except for some minor differences. Sorry it's been so long since I put a video up. Been kind of busy, especially with the holidays and everything else that came around. I have been videotaping things. Just haven't been able to put them up on the interwebs. There's a couple of projects coming down the pipeline that I don't have all of the video on yet, so I can't give you any information. But we'll keep, once it's ready, I'll get it up, and I might make it a couple of part video, or I might just kind of do whatever. I'm not sure yet. Anyways, let's get started here on this gun. They're relatively simple. They have a couple of parts in them. They're kind of a pain in the ass. I personally am not a huge fan of the SIG polymer guns in any way, shape, or form. I'm just not. They don't do anything for me. Basic takedown there. I'm going to start with a slide, so we'll set this over here. Like most pistols, recoil assembly comes out, barrel comes out, and like most of your polymer guns, you got to push something back here to make this base plate come out, or end plate I should say, and that in this case is the extractor plunger rod, or whatever the fuck they want to call that. Metal gal go there. At this point we can pull your striker out, then we can pull this rod and spring out if it'll cooperate. Come on, there you go, little guy. And that's 3 separate pieces there. You got this back plunger, this other detent, and the spring in between. No reason to take those apart. And then your extractor obviously comes out. As far as getting parts out of the slide, that's it. Relatively simple gun. Up top, we are going to pull the striker apart. It's got a couple of extra things in it. Like most of your strikers, you're going to pull back on the spring and then pull your striker cups out. Just like so. Spring. Now you're going to push this little gizmo down here, and this is actually your firing pin block or striker stop. Like most of your guns, you'll see them in the slide somewhere in here. This gun doesn't do that. It's built into the striker and striker housing, or whatever you want to call that. So we're going to push that down, and then your actual striker will just come right out the back end there. And then this little doodad will just rotate up. It might be a little sticky, but it comes out. And there's an itty bitty little spring right here. And you guys can see that. It's there. Don't lose that. I'm going to leave it there for now, just so I don't lose it when we go to put this thing back together. Now, bottom of half the gun. Getting the fire control group out of the gun is relatively simple. It's just a matter of pulling your takedown lever out, wiggle it. I don't know if that's factory on this gun or if it was an add-on by the customer. I don't know. Pry up on the front end here, and it'll rotate up, and you're going to pull forward a little bit. Comes out. So the other thing we need to do here is get this magazine catch out of here. If you want to take it that far or reverse it, it is reversible. Fancy tool. Little bitty hole. I don't know if you can see that hole there. Heh. Jokes. See that? Right there. That's what I'm messing with. And all you're really doing is trying to get in there and pry this little piece of that out of there. No big deal. And then you can slide the rest of the mag catch out the other way, and it sits in there like that. We'll set that aside. That's all there is to your frame. Nothing fancy or special on that. Now, the tricky part gets here when we're talking about this. And I say tricky, it's not real tricky. It's not easy. It's not as easy as a Glock. The first thing we need to do is pull our trigger return spring here off, and that's really just kind of a matter of rotating it over and pulling that little hooked end out, and that's kind of that. You can from there come on, cooperate with me. I'm trying to get this thing to turn. There we go. All I'm trying to do is get the back of this trigger bar outside of the sear housing, so we can rotate it back and then just lift up like that, and then that's our trigger and trigger bar. From here, we're going to take our slide stop out. Slide stop pin, slide stop comes up. There is a little spring that's running away on us right now, little tiny spring, and the tip of this little plastic nub here fits inside of this little hole here. Set that down. Now there's this pin here, and I'll show you. This is more or less just a stop pin for your trigger, like an over travel pin. It's in there relatively tight, but not bad enough that we're gonna get a punch for it and a hammer, and we're just gonna tap it. She'll come out. It does have a flared in. I don't know if you can tell or not there. It does have a slightly flared in. That's just to keep it in the gun. Sometimes they fall right out, and sometimes they're a butt. Once you get that out, you can now take, this is the I don't know how you call this. It's like a striker safety kind of deal. But you have to push it in, or at least I do. I push it in like that, so it's off kilter, and then pull it out from the back end there. You've got this little spring in there. Don't worry about that. We'll show you how to get that out here in a second. Now you have two pins that go in different directions up here. Now this holds all your guts in for your actual striker release or sear, whatever you want to call it, and then your sear stop. So I'm going to push it out here. That's that first pin, and then I'm going to push the big one out the other way. These aren't real tight pins. They come out real easy. And now all of our little parts are just going to kind of fall out in your hands, except for a couple there. And you've got your little V-spring looking thing there. You got your actual sear, and then your sear block here. Now, to get the rest of this housing out, we've got to push this roll pin out, which is relatively easy. That's also holding this other little like drop safety. It's kind of one of the features they modified. This is the updated, quote, updated version, because SIG apparently was putting guns out that if you dropped them just right would go bang and shoot yourself in the ding-ding or something, and apparently that had happened, and I don't know. Roll pin came out, and this just lifts up out the back like so. And a little piece there, your sear housing, and then obviously this little springy dingy here, and it'll just lift out. It ain't no big deal. In the same way, I'm just gonna leave it in there. But that's it. That's your whole reassembly. This is the serialized piece of the gun. This is when your serial number, heck, when you put it in the frame even, it shows the serial number when it's all lined up and whatnot. Now you can see it through the window there. This is the serialized portion of the gun. This is a modified, about highly, but it is a modified version of the P250, which was not real successful, mostly because it was kind of a piece of shit. I'm not real impressed with this gun either, especially with the problems they've been having with it. And you can argue, oh yeah, whatever, U.S. military adopted it, blah, and blah. My honest belief is because somebody's pockets got lined on that deal. I don't think it was that good of a gun to have made it through that trial. I don't know. I don't really care. These, they are what they are. I will be putting in new parts, so bear with me. We'll get right back together and get that done.